Hello and welcome to Firewalls.com WatchGuard video on how to set up a new firebox using the quick setup wizard through the web UI. In this video we're going to go over how to go through the quick setup wizard and get the firebox running to get to the basic UI after quick setup. So this will be setting up your internal and external networks and such, and we'll go through that together. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is we want to make sure that the firebox has been registered prior to setting this up. If you watched our last video, you'll see that process. Fairly simple, but basically you want to register and activate your firebox with the license that you purchased prior to setting it up through the quick setup wizard. And this is so that the default rules that get built during the wizard get built with the licensed security services. Otherwise, when we set it up and it's not registered, it's going to use standard default rules that do not have the security services enabled, versus here, if it's licensed already, then the default rules will get built differently using the security services that you're licensed for with that license key tied to that firebox. Well, with that said, let's move on getting this going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is you want to place the firebox somewhere where you can get a connection to the internet and have a computer plug into it as well directly. So that being said, you're going to start with connecting interface 0 to a network device with internet access, which is typically an ISP modem or router with DHCP enabled. By default, interface 0 is configured for the WAN zone, external zone, with DHCP. So it'll pull an IP address from your ISP equipment. And then once that's done, you'll go ahead and power on the firebox and let it boot up. During that time, you can go ahead and connect your computer to interface 1 and ensure your computer, by default, your network card will be set up with DHCP, but you do want to make sure that the computer you're connecting to port 1 is configured with DHCP so that it also may obtain an IP address from the firebox. If you're using, if you have an M4800, an M5600, or an M5800, any of those larger rack-mounted appliances, you'll want to use the management interface, which will be labeled on the firebox. It will not be interface 1. But that's just for those particular models. Okay, so now that we've got that connected, we're going to open up a web browser and we're going to go to the default IP of interface 1, which we use https://10.0.1. That's the network it uses. Interface IP is .1. And they use port 8080, so instead of 443, so you need to define port 8080 here with a colon. Then go ahead and enter. You're going to get to a login page after you bypass this cert warning here. The reason you get this cert warning is because the certificate is not trusted, and that's because the certificate on the firebox is a private self-signed certificate, not a publicly signed certificate that's trusted, which is fine because we know what it is. It's local to us, so we can go ahead and proceed. All right, so you'll log in with the default credentials. So that's going to be admin and then read, write, all one word. Okay. And then this video is going to go over how to set up the Firebox locally, so we're not going to do these other configuration methods. We're going to go ahead and select create new configuration. It's already selected for us. We're going to accept the license agreement here. You can read that with this link. We'll go ahead and click next. Okay, and then on this screen, we're going to configure the external interface, which is interface 0. For us, we're going to just continue to use DHCP, but if you need to configure it differently, this is where you'll do that. I do want to keep it DHCP, but I'll go ahead and click configure the external interface settings to show you. So here we are with the external interface of interface 0. You could change that. We're going to leave it how we initially configured it. If you need a VLAN for it, you would enable that here. We're not doing that. And we're going to keep it DHCP. I do want to quickly show you, though, if you were to set up a static IP here that your ISP has provided you, you can hit static and hit next. And it's as simple as typing in the IP address with the CIDR subnet mask here in CIDR notation. Usually it's a /24, which is a 255.255.255.0 subnet mask, and then the gateway IP address here. Like I said, we're going to continue using DHCP, so we're just going to change that back. And I could even go further back if I really wanted to skip this whole setting. But I do want to show you how to change your external interface settings there. So we'll go ahead and click next. All right, and now we are going to configure our DNS server and optionally any legacy WINS servers and also optionally your domain name if you have that. We do in this basic configuration video that we're showing, we're just going to use some standard basic configuration stuff, nothing really advanced with Active Directory or anything. We're just going through the quick setup wizard. So here for the external interface and for DHCP clients, also features that use DNS, we're going to define our DNS servers here. We'll use Google's in this example. We don't need, for our use case, we don't have a domain name or a WINS server, so we'll hit next. And now we're on to the trusted interface. So if you remember, that's interface 1 on the Firebox. And as you can see here, we already have this 10.0.1.1 on a /24 network. That's how we got here initially. And then here's the DHCP range. If you want that enabled, but it is enabled by default. And that's how your laptop or desktop or your host computer was able to get an IP address. You can configure this more in tune with your network. We always recommend using a network that is not a common network, like common home networks. Say like this here, the 10.0.1 or 10.0.0 or 192.168.0 or 192.168.1. All those common home networks that are default on home routers. You typically want to make the LAN IP network be somewhat unique and just different than, say, some defaults. This could cause an issue later on if you decide to use the remote access or mobile VPN service. If your home network is the same network as your office or small office or what have you here, then the traffic is not going to route over the VPN due to having the same, it's going to locally route where you're at versus coming here if there's a conflict. So we recommend keeping this unique. I'm going to leave it the default though, just for this use case. of the video, because when you do change it, you need to use the new IP address to connect. So I won't go through that here, but when you do change this and finish the setup, you'll have to update the IP in your web browser to get back to the web admin or web UI here due to the change. Now for DHCP, you may want some static IPs in your network, so you can lower this range at the top end and the bottom end, so to speak, however you like. That gives you room to add some static reservations if you want to, or you can leave it the full network range of available IPs if you like. All this customizable here during this wizard. All right, I'd like to point out also that if you are configuring a Firebox for the first time that's a wireless unit, you will get that screen before you reach this screen here. The screen is having us change the default passphrases or passwords for the default accounts. If this was a wireless model, you would instead get taken to a screen to enable the wireless access point, if you like, and to configure your SSID and passphrase and things like that. My unit here is not a wireless model, so I did not get that pop up. But going forward, here is where we change the passwords for the admin and status accounts. They do need to be different, and they also cannot be the same, and they also have to be different from the main defaults. So I'll just create some here. You notice there's a status and admin account. The status account is used for read only, as it says, and admins read write. If you decide you want to use the WatchGuard System Manager tool, which is not covered in this video, you can use that tool to get instead of it being through a web browser, it'd be through an application that has some live monitoring tools you can use. And you can use, say, like the read-only account to get that information without needing to read-write, just for example. Let me finish creating these here. See if it likes my passwords. Okay. All right, now on this screen, this is optional if you want to allow remote access to the Firebox from a remote computer. This is where you would set this here. Now, by default, you can by default, you can manage the Firebox from your local network. That'd be any trusted network. Any trusted or optional networks are going to be private IP address networks that you've defined and trusted. In this case, we have this so far in the setup. So we can access this from the local side, or trusted or optional. If you remember, interface 1 is our trusted and interface 0 is our external. If we want to remotely manage this Firebox, instead of adding any external in the rule so that it's open from anywhere, this allows you to type in the IP address, your public IP address that you're trying to remote from after your NAT, essentially. So your public IP is what you're going to put here. And this basically changes the policy to say we can allow management from trusted or optional or this IP, this public IP. So that locks it down to where only that public IP can access this management. We're going to leave this disabled, and I actually recommend this to be disabled for customers because this is not as secure, because this is essentially opening up port 8080, or if we change it later, or some other port or custom port, it opens that port to the outside, which is not a good security practice. So what you can do instead is you can configure, say, SSL VPN or mobile VPN to remote into your local network using authentication, and then from there reach the local IP of your firewall or firebox as if you're there locally. That would be a more secure way to remotely manage the firebox. All right, we'll click next here, and then this next screen is the contact information. I wouldn't skimp too much on this. I would kind of give it a little bit of touch customization, because whatever you put in here, well, all of these spots, it's going to reflect in your products page and also in your WatchGuard Cloud if you eventually sync that up, sync the Firebox of WatchGuard Cloud. That way, if you have multiple fireboxes or just multiple products in general, you'll be able to quickly identify amongst your other products. So here I got T45, like mentioned earlier. I don't have the wireless model. We'll just call this the T45 lab, because I know this is my lab box. Location, I can say I'm in my Indianapolis office. That's where this lab box resides, because I might have another lab box, say like a T55 or some other box that's also a lab, but it might be somewhere else. Contact person, I could just put our company, or I could put myself. It's all free text here, just whatever you like. If you want to provide feedback to WatchGuard, you can put that here. I'm just going to leave it as default and hit next. And you can see that the device name cannot have a space. So the nice thing is this form has some error checking, so we can go ahead and do that. There we go. And then here you're going to set your time zone. This is very important because this is going to tie your logs and reports to date times, and you want those to be accurate based on where the firewall is located. So I'm going to set my time zone here to Eastern time and hit next. Now, if this firebox wasn't registered earlier, which we mentioned that you want to register it prior, if you register it prior, you'll get this. You'll see that it'll show you what your feature key for your firebox, or for your, in this case, Firebox product includes. So as we have it registered already, it's going to create these, or it's going to enable these security services tied to our license, and it's going to do these default rules here. And these obviously can be customized later, but this is a good way to get on the ground running with security. If you did not register it prior and you got this far, let's say you're doing the whole thing offline, which is fine, or if you're not able to connect to WatchGuard over the internet for whatever reason with your internet issue, if you essentially offline, you can add you would add your feature key here. It would say add feature key, and you can add it, and there's also an option to sync it. So if you got to this point and you're able to restore internet service, you can sync it online with WatchGuard and have it pull down your feature key to get to this. But like I said, you can add the feature key on this screen if it wasn't registered prior, or if you needed to add it manually because it's not linked up, it would be here. In this case, as you can see, I've already registered the firewall, and it is licensed, and it's going to automatically add these rules. So we're going to hit next. And now the following screens are going to be different depending on your license, but the next screens are going to be configuring your subscription services. So it's going to show a list of license services from your feature key. For me, I have the web blocker, so I can deny these things. These are recommended. You can see here the different recommended categories, and you can go ahead and add some more if you need to. We could just add it all. So we'll hit next. All right. So next and last, we review the configuration with the summary. I also want to summarize the default rules again. So the default rules comes down to these things. It's going to allow outbound FTP, ping, DNS, TCP, and UDP connections, but it's going to block all unrequested traffic from the external network or the internet. Regarding FTP, HTTP, and HTTPS traffic, it will inspect that traffic using the security services to protect the internal network. And also the default rules allows, as we talked about earlier, management connections from the trusted and optional networks only, unless you enable remote management and defined a source IP address. So here we are. Yep, you can see all of our settings we set up earlier as we were going along. And now we can hit next, and it will save the configuration. And now setup is complete. This kind of says what I was talking about earlier. It allows this, blocks unrequested inbound. The license services that we saw in the wizard are enabled with the recommended settings. Now you'll notice nowhere in here did it have us upgrade the OS or the firmware during this step. That is done later. We won't be going over it in this video, but it's simply here. It just makes a mention that if you go to System and Upgrade OS, that is where you do that. And you'll see what I mean by Select System when we actually log back in using the new passwords that we set up. So I'll go ahead and log in here. Let's see if I remember my password. Good. All right. So this is the dashboard. And now you've completed the quick setup wizard. Now, earlier that note was talking about system. That's referencing these top level tree options here, and then you click them to get into subcategories where you need to go. There's the upgrade OS option. But that's it. You're here. You made it. Got it configured. If you were configuring this behind a switch and all your devices on the switch were reaching out and getting IPs from the Firebox using DHCP alongside your laptop, or let's say you've done this and you swapped out your laptop for the switch with all your devices and whatnot, you're going to start seeing that all here. You're going to, right here on the front panel, which is under dashboard, this is where you, this is the main page you get to. You'll see the name we created earlier, along with the model, the version that you're on, and if there's an upgrade available, your serial number, your time with time zone, also easy way to see if your time is correct in time zone. And that's it. And you'll see some additional details beyond what this is if you had multiple devices. As you can see, only traffic coming through is on 8080, the management port. There it is, hitting that policy. There's my destination from me. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. From here, we go into a lot of things. There is so much to go over. But this video is simply going over the quick startup wizard to get to pretty much an operational baseline state with the Firebox. In the next video, I'm going to go over what I believe should be a very good first step, and that's getting it enabled and attached to your WatchGuard cloud account. So that way you can start managing, not necessarily managing, but more so managing the, you're not managing the Firebox. When you connect it to WatchGuard Cloud, your Firebox, it's, you get the option to locally manage or cloud manage the Firebox. But either way is good to do, so you can keep on top of your Firebox using your WatchGuard account from any device on the internet, logging in to WatchGuard.com and getting a snapshot of your device when you're not around. Okay, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for more WatchGuard videos coming in the future, with the next one going over WatchGuard Cloud. Thank you.
So that's it for this video. Make sure you leave us more comments and questions. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Firewalls.com.